Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. It means a lot to us. Jalen is an adorable baby boy from Omaha, Nebraska, who was born fighting for his life. He spent his earliest days in intensive care, hooked up to many machines, his tiny body struggling against an ultra-rare genetic disorder that most of his doctors had never even heard of. It's Barth syndrome. In short, Barth syndrome is life-robbing. It is unfair, it is cruel, stealing roughly 50% of our children's lives before their 5th birthday. Jalen's family knows this all too well, losing a son and a brother to this very same disease. They were asked to sign a DNR, and yet they held on to hope. For Jalen, hope had a name, and that was an investigational drug named elamiprotide. Now on drug through emergency access for nearly a year and a half, Jalen is a happy and healthy toddler who is thriving and loves pickles. His story is not an isolated medical miracle, though. There's Josiah from New Jersey, Declan from Arizona, Gilby from my home state of Colorado. There's also those fortunate enough to make it to adulthood with Barth syndrome, Walker from Georgia, Jacob and Christopher from Mississippi, and many others. Jalen's story and the stories of families like his provide compelling testimony of the life-saving and improving benefits of this therapy. Their stories are valid, vital data points that tell us what traditional statistics alone cannot, that a therapy has meant all the difference between the fear of death and despair of yesterday and life and hope of today. Taken together, the data and the testimonies reinforce one another. And when they do, they create a body of evidence far stronger than numbers alone. We must advance regulatory consideration of patient testimonies to be beyond anecdotes, but rather to be included as critical data in the comprehensive and thorough review of new drug applications. To do so, though, has been fraught with subjectivity and inconsistency across the FDA. And in today's times, I want to specifically acknowledge that this is not a partisan issue. This is a regulatory matters concern that has spanned across 4 administrations in our experience. And it's clearly exemplified by those here alongside me that this is not unique to Barth syndrome. What our journey was, though, is in 2018, we held our externally led patient-focused drug development meeting with the FDA. And over the next 5 years, we held 4 listening sessions, 4 different review division assignments, over 80 Barth experts signing on to letters of support for this therapy, and nearly 20,000 people signing on to a community petition. That's just some of what we've done. The years of advocacy have culminated in a 10-6 positive advisory committee vote in favor of the therapy last year, with FDA-selected committee members also saying they would have voted in favor if the specific question had been phrased just a little differently. And yet, the NDA was CRL'd, meaning it was not approved, in May. The request for reconsideration rejected in July, and a new NDA accepted in August, but with a Class 2 designation, the longer of the 2 possible review periods. I want to footnote that we are hopeful, though, that the FDA will render a decision perhaps as soon as this month. But that's over 7 years. 7 years that our families have laid their lives bare, shed tears testifying to some of their hardest days, in hearing rooms and on Zoom, in the hope that their voices would matter. We all of us here, want safe and effective therapies. What we are talking about is how that determination is made. For us in this product, safety has not been an issue, thank goodness. The enormous challenge, though, has been proving efficacy according to traditional standards designed for large patient populations that we definitionally do not meet, nor can we. Today, we know of 28 people in this therapy through the Expanded Access Program, most of those in the US, and a large percentage of which are babies, like Jalen. Active consideration of published data that emerges from patients on expanded access as part of a new drug application review process offers yet another way to include additional relevant data to expedite access to the most vulnerable who have no other options. We ask you, as leaders in Congress, to ensure, in thinking about sensible policies to give and preserve young Americans' health today, that the FDA takes two critical steps, among others, but I want to call these out. First, avoid type 2 errors, false negatives that occur when therapies like ours actually do work, but are rejected simply because the statistics did not and cannot capture the full truth. Second, reject historical age step-down approval models that delay access for the youngest patients and balloon costs of products without considering a risk-benefit framework. Children like Jalen, born in cardiac distress, are born into a life of risk and uncertainty. We need streamlined regulatory approaches that don't deny children born today the possibility of tomorrow. Our families are not asking for shortcuts. They are asking for appropriateness, for urgency, and for recognition that their lived experiences are evidence that must be weighed alongside clinical data. Congress has the power to make sure their voices are not just heard, but acted upon. And for Jalen, and for so many like him with Barr syndrome, the action means everything, including life itself.